So we're going to start in Unit 3, and it contains only one lesson, which is talking about the main principles of heredity. Okay? Before we are going to go through this lesson, you should know the meaning of heredity traits and the acquired traits and what is the difference between them. Hereditary traits means they are traits that are transmitted from one generation to another, and these traits are called hereditary traits. For example, when I say that your color of your hair it looks like your dad, so you take the color of the skin or hair or even your height from your parents, okay? And these traits transmitted from one generation to another. Like what? Like the skin color, the hair color, the blood groups. So all of these passed from one generation to another, which means you take it from your parents and so on. It transmitted or moved from one generation to another. While we have another traits which is called acquired traits. Acquired traits means something that you can do it and comes from the environment or you can practice it. Okay, so when you do this, like that aren't transmitted from one generation to another, and you have learned it by yourself or practice to get or gain this trait, and it doesn't transmit it from your parents, this is called acquired traits. Okay, like when I say that Yusuf, for examul, Yusuf Tah can play football well. Okay, does he take this from his parents? No, but he has learned and practicing that he can play football or speak in English or mini language or learning of walking or riding a bicycle or playing football or swimming or anything else. So, did you understand the difference between the hereditary traits and the acquired traits? Okay, hereditary traits means it came from your parents. It passed from one generation to another. While the acquired trait is something that you have learned or you may practice to get these traits to be learned. Okay, like swimming, practicing speaking English, or anything else. Okay, starting with uh, the first part in this lesson, which is talking about the fathers of the genetics. The scientist is called Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel was the first one who had discovered the hereditary traits and make a book about it, and the founder of the hereditary. Okay, why? The Mendel's experiments on pea plants, and according to the results reached by Mendel, scientists of hereditary have gathered a lot of information about genetic traits that are transmitted from one generation to another. Okay, okay. But why Mendel choose the pea plant to make his experiment on it? For six reasons or 6 points. Number one, it's easy to be planted and it grows faster. Okay. Two, its life cycle is short, so it can make a lot of generations very fast. And its a flower are hermaphrodite, which means it can be self-pollinated. You took this in grade 8. Self-pollination means that the process of transferring the pollen grain from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower. So the flower itself make a reproduction process by the male and female parts inside it. It doesn't transfer to another flower in another plant. This is the meaning of self-pollinated. Okay. because sunflowers are bisexual, you know that. Number four, it can easily artificially pollinated. So it can make a self-pollination and artificial pollination at the same time because it's easy to take the answer from the male part to the ovary of the second part of the ovary of the second flower. So it's easily to make artificial pollination. It produces a large numbers of plants in generation. Okay, so the pea plants produce a lot of plants that you can see the differences between them, and it has several pairs of easily recognized contrasting traits, which means that you have a differ from one pea plant to another, and you can easily be recognized by your eye. For example, the color, the height, and the size, and so on. That's why he chose the pea plant. For what? Because it's easily planted, life cycle is short, self-pollinated, artificially pollinated by the human, and it has a large number of plants and several pairs of recognized contrasting traits that you can discover and appears in the generations. Okay, okay. Here is Mendel as he make his experiment. First of all, he made his experiment on which plant pea plant. Why? Because of the six reasons that I mentioned before. Okay, okay. Mendel has choose a yellow seeds. You know that the seeds of plants may be yellow and green. We have two colors. Sometimes you find that it has a yellow color or green color. Okay, but usually in common we use we see the green color. Okay, he made a self-pollination for the plants for several generations. Okay, so he made the plant to make a self-pollination, and he controlled this process to be sure about the purity of this trait. So this plant gonna produce yellow seeds, and these plants gonna produce all of the pure green seeds. So I have pure yellow and pure green. They are not mixed together. Then Mantle blended these seeds, pure yellow and pure green, when they produce plants, and he removed first the stem of some these flower before the answer become mature to ensure that the plant doesn't self-pollinate. Okay, because he want now to make a mix between the yellow and the green to make a reproduction between each other. Then he transferred the yellow seeds from one plant, and the green, he take the stem and remove it and take this one and make a cross pollination between each other, between the anther and the stigma. So he make a mixed pollination or a cross pollination between these two plants. Mendel observed that all produced seeds are yellow. No green seeds found in the first generation. When he made this experiment, he found that all the seeds that produced from the first generation, even he take a one plant that has a yellow seeds and one green seeds, but the mixing between them producing a first generation which is 100% yellow seeds. Okay, but why we don't have the green seeds in the first generation? He used one as two parents, one yellow and one green. Why the old children or the old generation in the first generation has the same yellow color and there is no green color? Okay, and here is the start point of the genetic traits study and information about this part. Mendel found that all the first generation 100% and the green color has no or 0% in the first generation. He said that the yellow is dominates over the green, which means it has the ability to be appeared in the first generation more than the green one. Even there is no green seeds appears in the first generation. Okay, because it dominates, which means its favorite appears completely without being any green seeds in the first generation. Okay, then when Mendel put this second generation, which is yellow seeds, and make a reproduction between the two yellow seeds from the first generation, he found that 3/4 of the yellow seeds are appeared in the second generation, and only 1/4 from green seeds appears in this generation. For example, look at this. If I say that I have two types or shape of seeds, one is smooth, like what you say right now. You can see this is a smooth seed, and this is a wrinkled seed. Okay, if I say to you that this seed is dominant, okay, and we explain the meaning of dominant, it dominates, which is which means it's favorite, and this one is recessive, which means it's, you can say, strong and weak. For example, dominant means strong, recessive means weak. Okay, if you make a, a process or reproduction between these two seeds, or cross pollination between this type of seed and this type of seed, okay, the plant of this seed and the plant of this seed, the cross pollination between them, what you are going to find in the first generation? Would you find any of these seeds in the first generation, the recessive, the weak one, or all what you found is the dominant one, which means smooth seeds? You are going to find that all the first generation contains this one, like that. Okay, and there is no any of these wrinkled seeds appears in the first generation. Okay, why? Because the smooth seeds are dominant, which means they are strong, so appears completely 100%. Okay, while in the second generation, so I have now a self-pollination number two, experiment number two, and I have these two types. It appears with percentage 3 or ratio 3 to 1, which means 3 strong to 1 weak, 3 dominant to 1 weak, recessive. Okay, so I have 3 here, and 1 appears from the recessive, and then 3 here, and 1 recessive. Okay, this is all what Mendel discovered from the two experiments that he made before. That the first generation contains all dominant traits appears with 100%, while the recessive traits appears in the second generation by ratio 3 dominant to 1 recessive. Okay, if you have any question related to this part, I'm gonna unmute you right now, and you can ask any question, but in English if you please. Okay, do
Can
you
you
have any
repeat the
question?
last part again?
Which one?
The last part.
The last part. We have two generations. Okay,
Hmm.
the first generation means that I have a dominant and a recessive traits. When you make a reproduction together between these two traits, you are going to find that all the children or all the offsprings or the individuals in the first generation are dominant like the dominant one, which means they are strong. They have the dominant traits, which means if I said that I have a red flower which is dominant and white flower which is recessive, when they I make a cross pollination between these two flowers, which one that you are going to find in the first generation, the red or white, or both of them? You are going to find that the red flower appears completely 100% in the first generation. Okay, Jenna, did you understand this point? Okay, while if I said that I have the second generation from the cross pollination between the one dominant and one recessive, you are going to find that the dominant appears 3 ratio 3 to 1, 3 dominant, 75 of the second generation are dominant, and only 25 which is recessive. And this is the difference between them. Okay, before I complete or continue the next part, you are going to show this video. Do you have any question? Can you repeat this again? I make it. I'm unmuted. I explain it again. Okay, guys, can you see this video?
No.
Did you understand this part of the lesson? By the way, I unmute all of you. So if you want to speak, you can speak easily.